I studied philosophy in university, and ever since I've been grappling with questions like the purpose of my existence and what pursuits can give my life a meaning. So in this video, I'll talk about my philosophical journey by telling you about 7 philosophers who have had big influence on my thinking, but at different stages in my life. Some I still admire and some I don't. Some I have known for decades and some I have recently discovered. Let's begin. Karl Marx, Let's Change the World. I became aware of Karl Marx's philosophy when I was perhaps teenager, 15 or 16. I was physically smaller than other kids, so psychologically this gave me a kind of inferiority complex. Marx's critique of capitalism and inequality had a profound impact on me. He divided the world between the haves and have-nots, the powerful and the powerless. Very black and white, which made it incredibly simple for me. Of course, Marx's philosophy is pretty complex, but it coincided with my teenage rebellion phase and how messy the world appeared and the need to change the world. I was like Holden in Catcher in the Rye by J.D. Salinger, angry, resentful, and Marxist. Now looking back, I don't buy Marx's over-rationalistic and materialistic explanation of the world. I've become more interested in the artistic side of human life. As animals, we want the material things for sure, but we also want something else like meaning, purpose, and passion. I still have that Marxist anger in me when I see how the rich enjoy their private rockets and yachts, while millions of people starve on the other side of the world. However, as I'm growing older, Marx is getting smaller and smaller for me. Jurgen Habermas, Let's Talk Democracy. With the influence of Marx, I studied politics and philosophy at a left-leaning university in England. So I was introduced to the Frankfurt School, or critical theory, which is cultural Marxism. There was a group of German philosophers in the 20th century at the University of Frankfurt who tried to answer why Marx's prediction about working-class people uniting failed, and why the working class fought for their nations in 2 world wars, not uniting to topple capitalism. Habermas is the last of the group who, instead of economic materialism, focused on language as the most important tool for the dispossessed. He talked about how language makes us all equal to argue our points within a democratic process. Since we all have a tongue to speak, we are equally able to articulate our views in an open discourse. This he called communicative rationality. Habermas defended a modernity based on rationality against the French postmodernists' attack. But I have to be honest, Habermas is not sexy, not because he's German, while the postmodernists were mostly a sexy French, but because Habermas is boringly too rational and says the right thing, like a politician. I think his dialogue, consensus building, and democratic participation are important, but I've lost faith in politics a long time ago. Michel Foucault, Knowledge is power and power is corrupt. At university, I became aware of Habermas's arch enemy, Michel Foucault, who was exciting and charming, like all the French. While Habermas took inspiration from Marx and Kant, the 2 rational philosophers, Foucault went towards Nietzsche by arguing that power manufactures truth. Foucault's ideas are also pretty radical, saying that all knowledge is power and science is the tool for the powerful to suppress the weak. For Foucault, modernity and modern regimes use knowledge, science, and technology to control us without us really knowing. In the same way that I lost interest in Marx for explaining everything through materialism, I find Foucault's explanation of everything through repressive power relation a bit outdated. Artists have power over me, but it's not repressive. When I read a great novel, surely it has power, but it inspires me too. A father has power over his kids, but he wants them to do well. So not all authorities are repressive. Foucault, while acute with his observation how power manipulates, exploits, and destroys the world, he failed to understand human emotions. We are sometimes happy to be vulnerable and let others lead us. Frederick Nietzsche, Radical Individualism. Foucault introduced me to Frederick Nietzsche, whose spell is still pretty strong on me. Nietzsche is the bad boy of Western philosophy. He looked at the whole 2,500-year history of Western philosophy and said, "Fuck this shit. It's too damn rational. Let's go back to what it was like before 2500 years ago. He studied the Greek tragedies and found Dionysius, the god of passion, was as powerful as Apollo, the god of reason. For Nietzsche, Western philosophy was too Apollon or rational, so we need a bit of passionate madness. He also famously said God was dead. In the absence of God, science and reason would take us to nihilism. What was his solution? He said religion is dead, God is dead, rationality, whose children are science and technology, cannot answer our existentialist questions. So Nietzsche argued human passion, which is expressed through art, can save us from nihilistic tendencies, such as suicide, overindulgence, or addiction. Nietzsche is the total opposite of the egalitarian Marx. He is an elitist who has a low opinion of the working class or the slaves as he called them. Nietzsche didn't want equality but hierarchy, which allows great men like great artists and philosophers to rise up through their merit. Not everyone deserves a trophy, but only a select few who have done something genius, something great. Nietzsche's own work captures the chaotic and disorganized attitude of an artist in his writings. Although poetic, also sporadic, so open to many interpretations. Famously, the Nazis used his ideas to promote their own ideology of racial superiority. Nietzsche was more of an artist than philosopher, so there's a bit of chaos in his work. He wrote his books while walking. Arthur Schopenhauer, we are driven by a blind will, and that is built inside us. I have come across Schopenhauer quite recently, and more so through a Nietzschean window, so to speak. I knew about him, but because I always associated him with pessimism, I used to ignore him. But since I have become more drawn to literature, I have realized how influential he was on great writers. If Nietzsche was the most influential philosopher on the 20th century writers, Schopenhauer was the most influential philosopher on the 19th century writers, including Nietzsche himself. What is his core philosophy? He sees the world through will and representation, which is also the title of his most famous work. What it means is this: we see the world not as it is, but as a mere representation of it. Our life experiences and interactions with the world are simple representation of something deeper, bigger, and more mysterious, which he calls will. For example, our will to live determines everything we do in life. We seek food, shelter, sex because of this blind will built inside each one of us. But this will is not individual, but a universal force, only manifested through all beings. Think of this will as a huge puppeteer who has a string connected to all the living beings and non-living beings. Schopenhauer read a lot of Eastern philosophy, especially Hinduism and Buddhism, so it resembles Eastern philosophy a lot more than Western philosophy. I have to confess, I still not fully understand Schopenhauer, but I'm keen to know more. Lao Tzu, let's become one with nature and flow together. Through Nietzsche and recently Schopenhauer, I am more drawn to Eastern philosophy. Taoism, a folk religion from China, is based on the idea of being one with nature. The legendary founder of Taoism is Lao Tzu. He was supposedly authored the most important text of Taoism called Tao Te Ching, in which he outlines some of the core principles of Taoism. The central idea of Taoism is not resisting nature, but syncing yourself with the flow of nature. Often a good metaphor is a river. When faced an obstacle like a rock, it flows around it. In the West, we tend to fight to remove obstacles to get what we want, which can destroy nature or destroy ourselves. Lao Tzu and Taoism teach you to not go against nature but learn to flow with it. Taoism is often called the philosophy of artists, because while producing art, like painting or writing literature, great artists get to a zone where time and the outside world lose their importance as you focus on your work. In other words, you connect with something deeper or bigger than yourself. This same with the elite sports people who become one with their body. Since I am new, I have a lot more to explore. Buddha, instead of changing the world, change yourself. In Japan, there is a saying, Japanese are born Shinto but die Buddhist. It reflects their contrasting philosophies. Shintoism being more optimistic, forward-looking, and energetic philosophy, which matches how the youth see the world, while Buddhism is slightly pessimistic, reflective, and passive philosophy, which matches how old people see the world. As I'm getting older, I'm becoming more Buddhist. According to Buddhism, life is suffering. Why? Because of our insatiable desire to have more and more, we suffer more. In order to ease suffering, we should get rid of the desire to own or acquire things. Capitalism promotes consumerism, while Buddhism promotes a kind of inertia, not chasing things on the outside or being in a race, but instead seeking happiness on the inside. Material objects cannot fulfill you in the long run. The old adage that money cannot buy happiness. The richer you become, the less content you become, so you become a slave to your own desires. You try new drugs to get the same high you got from an ice cream or a coffee when you are less rich. Buddhism even goes farther than killing your desire. It says you should get rid of the thing you call the self or the ego. Why? Because the self does not exist. It's an illusion or a mirage that makes us want things, which makes us suffer. To be truly content and at peace, you have to kill the one thing you call your own self. Not a physical murder, but nipping that selfhood in the bud inside you. I guess you could say that the notion of the self is like a demon. Once we implant inside us, it becomes me. It drives me everywhere. It forces me to want things I don't need. It forces me to make bad decisions like eat too much, drink too much, and become addicted to things like money, sex, alcohol, or social media. Buddha was a prince who left everything to seek happiness in a forest or mountain. I still have a dream of owning a little cottage or a hut in some mountain. Oops, I said I want to own. So to sum up, my philosophical journey has had 3 phases. First, rationalism. Marx was a hardcore rationalist and materialist. Habermas is a rational humanist. The second phase was postmodernism. Foucault was a postmodernist. Nietzsche inspired postmodernism by questioning the validity of a single truth. The third phase for me was art. Again, Nietzsche is crucial because he put emotions or passion on the same level as rationality and inspired authors like Proust, whose work I love. Also, through Nietzsche, I became aware of Eastern philosophy of Buddhism, which goes against materialism, and Taoism, which teaches you to live an artistic life. As a teenager, I wanted to change the world, as Marx said. Then I realized that things were far more complicated as Habermas and Foucault battled in my head. Then Nietzsche shifted my mind from pure rationality to passion and art. Then Lao Tzu and Buddha allowed me to change myself, not the world. Now my philosophy is very simple. I should make myself as useful as possible. So this channel is for me to explore human philosophy. And in the process, you guys learn something with me. My aim is to cultivate better philosophical understanding of this animal species we call human. But on a deeper level, the biggest question I have is between equality and quality, fairness and greatness, and egalitarianism versus elitism. On the one hand, I love people smarter than me who can teach me something, but also people living a simpler life than me, so I can learn something from them too. My question to you, who are some of your favorite philosophers and why? Thank you for watching.